Okay. Yeah, so we're good. This is our second hangout today, and we have finally got our betas out, so that's pretty cool. Um, okay, cool. So let's get it started. I actually don't even know what we're going to talk about. As I said on Discord, this is just a very random hangout. Yeah, and okay. So by the way, I have published pretty much everything and you would find everything you need for Leaf 4. So you can just copy this, composer global require. Um, so this for v4.0 beta. So this will just install the Leaf CLI. I actually have no idea of how it works with the previous. I don't think it actually does anything. So you can just copy this command and paste it, or you might just uninstall the previous version and then paste this in. And then from there, you can just use Leaf. So that's basically the process to create a new Leaf application. I unfortunately haven't yet got an upgrade guide. But then for Leaf, you basically just need to compose update. But then for Leaf MVC, things might get a bit tricky, especially with schema files. So I don't really have an upgrade guide yet, but then I plan to pretty soon. And I also have to write a blog post, which I haven't done. Um, might probably write that before I sleep. And it's 9 p.m. here, and the weather is crazy, like extremely hot. I do not know the temperature right now, but then it feels like 30 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that would be in Fahrenheit. 30 C. Yeah, that's like 86. It really feels like 30 right now. And it's nighttime. So you can imagine. Anyway, um that's life on the equator. So yeah, beta.leafphp.dev, copy this up and then just paste it and you should be pretty good to go. Yeah, as I mentioned, I don't really have any real theme for this hangout. So just drop in your comments, your questions, wherever it might be, and I'll just answer and we can move on. Um, yeah, I'm actually dying. I don't know if you guys can see, like, actually sweating a lot. Like, yeah, the weather is just crazy hot. I don't know if there's like a heat wave. Is there a heat wave going on? The place is always hot anyway, so I don't think there's any any messed up weather happening. Um, cool. So as I mentioned, with Leaf itself, you don't really have to do anything. The upgrade is pretty smooth. You just compose the update, and the syntax is the same. No change in syntax. Absolutely nothing. Just compose the update, and you're good to go. And for the documentation, it's been updated with different learning paths. So you can have like Leaf as a basic web micro framework. You can use it to build APIs or full stack applications. Um, yeah, but then you get a very basic structure, just one index.php file, which can be pretty cool if like you're building an API that has one or two routes. Um, but then if you're building something really big, then Leaf MVC is there for you. Leaf MVC can be used to build full stack applications or full stack APIs. And this is here to kind of get you started. So it just walks you through the basic directory structure, um, creating routes, working with controllers, all of that stuff, models, schema files, pretty much everything you need to know. So there's like a mini tutorial, uh, yeah, something like that. And then there are also different learning paths customized for Leaf MVC. So that's pretty much what the new documentation does. It just there's the lens section, um, and then I think yeah, lens section, and then the rest is just different documentation for Leaf MVC. So, for instance, if you go somewhere like databases, we redirect you to models, or you could probably use a query builder if you want to run queries. And then down here, there's also multi-DB connections. That's new. And then um, so you can use different connections here. And if you're using Leaf MVC, this is already customized for you. Like all of this is already done. So you can just go straight to writing your queries. Um, Leaf Redis is here, only works with version 4 for now. Da, da, da. Same thing for authentication. You have a special documentation for Leaf MVC. So you could just click there and then it teaches you how to customize Leaf auth to work the way you want it to work. Or if you need a full configuration, you could just publish it. Most of these you won't have to do for like a normal application. But then if you need any special configuration, you can just publish whatever configuration you need. So it works the same way for every other module. For instance, if you want to customize course, you could just leave config publish, and then it will publish the configuration file for you so you can edit it. So by default, Leaf MVC 4 ships with zero config. So if you check the repo out, there's like zero configuration here. And any special configuration, as I mentioned before, you can just publish it. So yeah, so the documentation is also written in a way like you actually don't need to publish the you actually don't need to publish the configuration because it walks you through different setups with Leaf MVC 4. And then if the configuration is not enough or you need a specialized configuration, then you can just publish it. So that's how it works. So for most use cases, you won't ever have to publish a configuration. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. This is your Leaf MVC 4 structure. I think we've already looked at it for a couple of weeks already. So there's nothing new here. It's just the basic same old Leaf MVC 4 structure you are used to. Um, yeah. Okay. So refresh documentation, refresh the homepage. That has pretty much almost everything you need to know about Leaf. And I haven't used this in a while. So if you don't know this, you can actually run Leaf directly in your browser using the sandbox. So yeah, actually totally forgot about it. So if you want the full thing, I think you can go to, I think it's sandbox.leafphp.dev. Yeah. Yeah. And then you can just run your code. It has pretty much every Leaf module installed. So you can check that out. Okay. Um yeah. So that's pretty much it. Also, please remember to subscribe to our blog. I forgot to turn this to dark mode. Okay. Yeah. So just subscribe to our newsletter, and if there's any, it will pop up right in your email. So um, I think that's one new thing. I don't think this was here last week. I think it was added during the week. So um, remember to subscribe to that. And yeah. Okay. So any questions from you guys? Because I'm pretty sure I've already talked about everything in Leaf MVC over the past couple of weeks. So Leaf MVC, everything is pretty much exactly the same. Not exactly the same, but um, you get the point. So let me just Okay. Um, yeah. So the Leaf CLI, I think I even kind of showed this already before, when I was doing the stream earlier. This pretty much works like this. Leaf creates MVC for test, and then I can select any of these. The most interesting option here, obviously, is this, because after installing it, you get to customize it a little bit, like setting your view layer if you want to use Docker and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much um why I always go for the option. And by the way, the options here match exactly what you see here. So there's like a basic Leaf app, Leaf MVC, and then Leaf MVC for APIs. So those are like the exact options you get over here. Um, install this, yes. React. Yeah, I always choose React because React is kind of like my favorite content framework. And then the really cool thing about using React with inertia is you don't have to deal with a whole lot of nonsense going on in the front end world because inertia pretty much handles everything. So it's basically just like a PHP server-side rendered React application, and it's just clean, beautiful. Everything just works so nicely, and yeah, so that's kind of why I always go for the option. Um, yeah, but then it will set up a Svelte or Vue version of whatever you see here, and yeah, I was kind of forced to learn Svelte. I mentioned last week I have never written a single line of Svelte, and the Svelte documentation was kind of like my best friend over the past 2 or so days. It's pretty cool. It kind of feels like a combination of React and Vue, because then you have some things here that just outright look like React, and then some things just look like Vue. Um, yeah, it's kind of weird, honestly, but that's probably because I'm used to React and Vue, and yeah, I don't know. Svelte has like a whole lot of things under the hood, but then at the face value, like speaking only from a syntax standpoint, it's really like a combination of React and Vue. So it was pretty fun working with that, and I don't think I'm ever going to work with it again. Yeah. So waiting for React to install. Um, yeah, I would probably add that option I spoke about earlier. So you could sort of choose a different package manager. Because NPM is, nah, I don't think I've ever had a good um time working with the NPM package manager. I always use PNPM every single time. Okay, so this should be pretty done. Be done pretty soon. Uh, okay, yeah. So it just sets up React View, Leaf, auth, um, sessions, password encryption, blah blah blah. And you can see it's using V4. Hopefully this time all of our versions match up. But it's been pretty annoying dealing with composer version mismatches. Yeah, so we can cd into MVC4 test. So, yeah, so we need to configure our database. um, so my database, I'll use an existing database. By the way, in Leaf MVC4, if your database doesn't exist, let me just use this. Like an MVC4 something, and it doesn't exist. Whenever you try to migrate your database, Leaf will automatically create a database for you. So what I need to make sure of is that your actual server configuration is correct. So like username, password, and then the host. So once that's correct, Leaf can kind of create a database for you, even if it doesn't exist. So over here, I'll just use an existing database. I think I know stuff like this, and um, yeah. So that's all I have to do, and I can start my server. Yep. So I have Vite and I have Leaf. So it's to start two servers. Should be pretty used to this by now. Um, okay. So yeah, that's what I get. This is React, as we saw earlier. Page navigation, all of that stuff works correctly. I can head over to like settings, update stuff, and it works. So yeah, that's what you get out of the box. And as I mentioned, doesn't really matter what option you choose, you pretty much get the same UI. If you don't want stuff, you could always delete them. Um, Everything is in the app views directory. So same thing for the welcome screen. It tells you exactly where everything is. So if you don't need something, you could just always delete it. So all of the React stuff are here. Um, yeah, pretty much. So you can, for example, create a new page. I'll name this test, so like a test page, and I'll just output this is a test. And then yeah, that's another reason I prefer using React in Inertia shared props, how you can just kind of like pass everything down. And then working with forms is also another really impressive thing. The Inertia team did an amazing job on this. So with forms, you could just do like a use form and then um, submit a form directly like this. So Inertia will automatically pick up your form fields and then make whatever request it's supposed to do. So that's actually pretty cool because in if you're using React with like just like a raw Vite setup, or even in Next.js, you'd have to use something like maybe uh, a third party to kind of make that query. Anyway, so this is what you have, test, and I can just add a, I think the easiest thing to do would be to add a new route. So I can probably just go here and then pass in exactly what you see above, which is app inertia. So there's something new in Leaf 4. In Leaf 3, you don't have the inertia kind of route. So it takes in the route name, which is a get route, by the way. And then the view is the inertia page you want to render. In this case, I think I named it test. And then finally, props you want to pass to whatever components you use. So that's pretty much it. So I should be able to go to about and see this is a test. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's actually all you have to do. Is this easy to build with React, Inertia, and then you have everything Leaf offers you on the back end. So for instance, let me log out, try to log in uh, like this. Yeah, I think there's something I have to do. Anyway, so all of Leaf's validation like this is available to you. And all I'm doing for this is login controller. I am just validating data. So if the data is not valid, I just redirect to the login screen with a flash message, which is what's holding all of this. So basically, that is the whole login system. And all of Leaf's um, Leaf auth, Leaf forms, pretty much every single thing is available to you. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. So what was the password? Accepting. Okay, yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's actually all you have to do. And then it's super fast too. I have no idea what kind of rendering inertia does, but then it just feels like a native PHP page in terms of performance. Um, yeah, so that's actually really cool. Um, yeah. So every other thing is pretty much the same old. I mean, besides this view stuff, every other thing is the same. So you have your controllers. We just saw an example controller for login. Um, Database, you have your schema files. So this is your entire database. You can fake data or just pass in random strings. And it will work either way. And then you can PHP leave DB seed and updates the number of items you want to create. Definitely don't do that. So like maybe 10. So it's to create 10 copies of data. And then you can use faker using the at faker flag. So in this case, it was at faker.name. Password is password. And then this is at tick, just a little helper to help you use dates, basically. It uses leave date under the hood. So technically, every single leave date function should be available to you, just like this. Yeah. So schema files, controllers, models, which use Eloquent, and now your Eloquent DB configuration is shared with Leaf DB. I think I talked about that last week. So um, usually you have multiple DB connections set up depending on your kind of database. And now that everything is synced up, you could just DB maybe like Postgres if your Postgres connection is active, and then you could just query that like that. Maybe users or yeah, so like this. And if you don't pass in any connection, it will just use a default connection. So wherever is set up in your database config. In this case, I actually don't have the database config because I'm using the default. But then if I want the database config, I could just pop up a new terminal. I could just PHP leaf, what's the command? I think it's like config publish, and then whatever configuration I want to publish. So in this case, I want to publish the what config do I want to publish? The DB config. So I think database, and it will automatically create the configuration folder, and then I can just pop in and then edit anything I want to do. So if I want to use multiple connections, I could set that up in here. And then my models, leave DB, everything will just pick up the same configuration. So yeah, you could do that. You can do that. Every other thing, as I mentioned, is exactly the same, 100%. Yeah, over here I was trying to use the Postgres connection, and that's what threw the error. So yeah, oh damn. Okay, okay. Just list them down and I'll answer them. Um, cool. So, what was I even talking about? Yeah, I was talking about configuration. So that's pretty much how you can configure um, LeafDB. But then version 4 tries to stay away from configuration files because they can become bulky. So for every item you want to configure, for instance, authentication, you move over to the Leaf MVC documentation, and then you can find special configurations you can use like this right in your env file. So you can just pop this in here like this. So this configures your auth database table, your auth db id, timestamps if you want to use timestamps, the timestamp formats to use because different databases work with different timestamp formats, and then if you want to use session basically. So yeah, for like the most basic configuration, you could just do them in your env file. But then if you need anything beyond this, like for instance, you want to use a special database hash, you could do pretty much the same thing here. Pop in auth and then just update that. So you could use your own special hash method to hash your password. By default, Leaf uses I don't know, either bcrypt or argon2, if I remember right. Yeah. So if you have your own hash that you want to use, you could just do that here, and then Leaf Auto will use your hash function, and then the same thing for verification. So that's here. Or any other configuration you want to change, pretty much. So as I mentioned, it's pretty much the same for all of Leaf MVC 4. We stay away from the PHP config files, just because they create a mess. And Leaf MVC 4 is about trying to keep things light, trying to keep things understandable. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is your entire application, and for most applications, this is going to be it. Um, Unfortunately, there's still like this huge mess here, from like your npm dependencies, your env and other files. This was added for React because I am not using React with TypeScript for this. Of course, if you wanted, you could always add it. Just npm I TypeScript and then your stuff. Yeah. So by the way, this also has a broad blade version. I think I showed that the last time. It has just a blade version. So if you don't want any of this JavaScript stuff, you will just go with the blade version, and it's exactly the same. It uses Alpine, but an Alpine isn't like something you have to configure like React or Vue or anything. So it doesn't mess with your code. It acts like it's part of your code basically. So um, you could just pretend it's not there. Okay, so this is Leaf MVC 4. It's so light. It's actually so light. I really don't know what I should be talking about. Um, okay. What performance issues did I encounter? Um, yeah, so I think a couple of weeks ago I was talking about how I was comparing Leaf MVC to um Laravel 11, I think. I think it was Laravel 11. And they were about in the same range of performance, which was absolutely crazy because um Leaf itself is like way, 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 way out of that range, like in terms of performance. Leaf on its own is probably it is one of the most performance frameworks. Um, you can run the benchmarks yourself or not. Yeah, but then Leaf was built to use as little memory resources as possible and to run as fast as it possibly can. But then Leaf MVC 4, as of the time I released the alpha, was doing pretty much the same performance as Laravel, which was just insane to me. So one big reason was the way configuration was loaded. So actually, there were two main reasons. Um, a big one is the new level of automation. So as I mentioned before, you have things like this, where Leaf just figures out what is in your application and then what it should set up for you. So um, just like how it set up React and all of that stuff, and we didn't have to configure anything, everything just runs on its own. That level of automation is in pretty much every. So for instance, if we should Leaf install queue right now and then create a job, Leaf automatically starts a queue worker first on its own. You don't have to configure anything; it just does it. So all of that level of automation just um, made performance plummet, and it was really bad. The second, which was also kind of related to the first problem, was the way configuration was loaded. So I had to basically rewrite the um, the config layer of Leaf. So the main problem was when I removed all of this configuration, because Leaf MVC 4 doesn't come with a configuration, but then you can add the config folder and then still use it to configure stuff. So it was that configuration plus automatic configuration from all of the modules. Basically, just slowed everything down. So rewriting it was the answer. I don't know how deep I'm supposed to go into that, but Leaf, Leaf MVC core, which is basically the heart of Leaf MVC. Um, and then here, all of Leaf's configuration is loaded, all of Leaf MVC's configuration, database stuff, V, which is basically all of your front end bundle assets, libraries, custom libraries. So you could just create a lib folder in here in like your application root. I think there's even a command for that, but I've forgotten the command. So you could just pop up a lib folder here and then add some random PHP code to it, and Leaf automatically pick all of that stuff up. So basically, there's just like a whole lot of configuration being added, being done for you, basically. Yeah, so I basically had to rewrite all of the configuration stuff, how configuration is loaded, pretty much all of that stuff. And then how it interacts with your custom config, doesn't merge or override, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we got performance back up to a respectable number. I mean, in terms of like requests per second, because that was the easiest way to measure performance for me. I use WRK to measure those stuff for Apache benchmark. So yeah, that's pretty much the easiest way for me to gauge how Leaf is doing in terms of performance. Because basically requests per second can be a bit vague, but it's kind of a good measure. So the longer it takes for Leaf to respond to a single request, yeah, if it takes too long to respond to a single request, I kind of know there's something up with it. So yeah, that's kind of how I did my debugging. Okay, so what features are standing for the final version of V4? I'm hoping for 2 weeks for the final ETA. There's still a lot of automation I want to add, like a whole lot. But then most of it won't be things. There won't be like new features or anything. There'll just be automation. So I think that level of automation is what's left. And then Leave Zero. So some time ago, I think 2 streams ago, I showed, or was it last week? Probably last week. I showed Leave Zero, which is a bunch of snippets you could just copy and paste into your applications. That's so bright. Yeah. So just components, stuff like that, hero sections, whatever, that you could just copy and paste into your application. So that was supposed to ship with the beta, but then I only built components for Blade. I didn't build any for React, Vue, Svelte, all of that stuff. So I'm kind of taking that back and not exactly having different versions for like the different frameworks, but then I want to just make sure that no matter what framework, what view engine you're using, you would have something to work with. So Zero is another thing outstanding. Automation is probably like the major thing. What else? Uh, da, 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 da. Yeah, basically front end stuff, cleaning up. Just cleaning up basically, because some of the modules haven't been maintained in a while. Q, Redis, those stuff even existed, I think 2 years ago. I think I wrote them 2 years ago. But then I hadn't maintained them for quite a while. So basically, kind of reviving some of those modules I haven't maintained in a while. Like this one. It's supposed to be for SWO. I think SWO or OpenSWO. I don't remember which one it is, but it's just supposed to be like a high performance web server. I think it should even work right now. But then it was supposed to have stuff like WebSocket and all of that. And then it was supposed to automatically just work with Leaf. And it did. But that was 3 years ago. Leaf has changed a lot since then. So yeah, there's quite a lot of maintaining to do. Um, yeah, so it's basically stuff like that. I think the automation though would be the biggest thing. Um, yeah, don't know if that answers your question. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was yeah. Yeah, honestly, actually don't know what caused me to check how the performance was doing. I think the page actually looked slow because usually when I refresh stuff, I don't see any visible refreshes. So if I do see a visible refresh, then I kind of know something weird is going on. So I think that's all due my attention to um, how slow it had gotten. So yeah, I think at a glance, it kind of looks good. And then some benchmarks to it, it's not that bad. Could be better, honestly, but it's not too bad right now. Hopefully by the time the actual version 4 comes out, I would have found more stuff I can optimize. So yeah, that's another thing. Oh, and then I want to also put queues and Redis out of beta. So that's another thing. So far they seem to be working fine. But then queues only supports DB. It only supports like database queues for now. I'm going to add Redis support and then what else? Yeah, basically add Redis support. I think that's the only major thing left with queues. And then a way to stop your queues, a way to stop your workers after you've dispatched them. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. So basically just automation, fixing up anything that pops up during the beta, and then just maintaining older modules basically. That's all that's left. Nice. Um, is there any other thing? I don't know if there's anything I haven't showed already because I've kind of been talking about MVC4 for quite a while. Um, but then funny enough, I actually read a quote. I don't remember who it was by, but then they said something like the best releases are the most boring ones. So that's actually really cool because everything just works intuitively, I guess. There's nothing fancy going on over here. It's just exactly as described in the documentation. So I guess that's a good thing. Um yeah. And speaking about releases, Laravel 12's release, I kind of took a look at that and I don't want to say it didn't meet my expectations, but it kind of didn't, especially since um you probably might not know this, but like Laravel is one of my biggest motivations to do stuff. I mentioned last week that Leaf 4 would have already been out if it weren't for Laravel. Always adding cool stuff. Um, just things that made a lot of sense. So yeah, it was just kind of a bummer. The their release just really didn't meet my expectations. Their new website, Prince bend my eyes, not meeting expectations, really. Um, there was just so much that felt wrong, and I really thought they could do a much better job because I mean some of my favorite developers are from Laravel, so this just did not feel like something that developers of that caliber would put out. Anyway, that's just my opinion on that. Um, yeah, and the release itself, I don't know. Uh, yeah, really just overall did not meet expectations. Laravel Cloud though was really cool. Um, yeah, Cloud was cool. Yeah, but besides that, I don't know. I didn't really find anything I actually really fancied. Yeah, I don't know about you guys. I saw a lot of backlash on Twitter, and it was people really going crazy about, especially the starter kits. I don't know why people are complaining about the starter kit. Um, I think they didn't include a regular Blade starter kit, if I remember right. I think the only starter kits were for React and Vue, and I think Livewire. Yeah, where do I even go to find that? Right, starter kit. Yeah, so it was only those three, and people were not happy about that. Anyway, in my opinion, they look pretty good. But then I noticed the Vue is still using Tailwind version 3, which is weird because every other thing out there is on Tailwind version 4. Um, I guess they might have their reasons. Yeah, but in terms of a Laravel 12 release, um, yeah, I'm putting Leaf MVC 4 ahead just because of basic things like performance and I mean every other thing, simplicity, which is what Leaf has been doing forever anyway. Um, yeah, so I guess that is Leaf MVC 4. Leaf version 4 is pretty much the same. There's honestly nothing to demo with Leaf version 4 besides the new inertial route, and then there's like a view route. Basically just an update to the routing system. Um, you can use app view to directly render a view. You can use app inertia, and then responses. You could response a view to directly use your templating engine. So if you check the controllers, oh wait, this is using React. So then we are response inertia. So these are like some new things in Leaf 4. But yeah, nothing fancy because if you're using Leaf 3, you basically just do this. I added these so you kind of have like a unified API. So you always do response something. Um, yeah, but honestly, it's just preference. I would prefer response inertia to just inertia because without context, it's very vague as to what this is doing. So response inertia just makes a lot more sense. Yeah, but it's preference. You can use either method. It doesn't change anything. It's the same function being called. So yeah. So those are basically just small things in Leaf 4. Nothing has changed. It's just tiny, very tiny things. Um yeah, just to match the view layer. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Um PHP Leaf config publish view. Right. So there's one thing I forgot to mention. So I've removed a bunch of commands from the Leaf CLI. So if you type in Leaf, you no longer see UI, and then you can't create with like a custom flag anymore. The main reasons I took those out, there are a lot more things for me to maintain. And right now I'm putting out Leaf and Leaf MVC 4 are probably like the biggest things on my plate. So adding extra things to maintain, definitely not good right now. So I took those out. And then also this new walkthrough is pretty good. Like it's really good, good enough to replace, probably good enough to replace a UI. Although the UI was kind of cool and you could open that up in your browser. I actually don't even know how many people actually use that, but it was cool, but an extra thing to maintain. Um, and not worth it for now. Eventually, it might come back, but right now, there are just way more important things to work on. So I took that out and create also, you can't use leaf create dash C. So that will no longer work. You can't use that to customize your Leaf version. So before you could use that to kind of pick a bunch of modules you wanted to install, and you could use bare UI to build like a Leaf MVC or a Leaf application. You can't do that anymore. If you want to do it, you have to basically go through the default setup, and then you PHP leaf config publish view, and then head over to your view file, and then just replace this like leaf blade with leaf fair UI or any other templating engine you want to use. So that's basically all you have to do. And then from there, you can just head over and then create your views. But then the only downside is you won't be able to, you won't benefit from all of the niceties Leaf has, like PHP Leaf G View. That won't work for other templating engines besides Blade, React View, Svelte. Yeah. So yeah, that's like one really big change. Um, but then in my opinion, it makes a lot more sense because almost everyone uses Blade with Leaf MVC. If you really need that extra performance, this is the extra step you need to do. So you publish the view config and then just load bare UI here. And that's pretty much it. So then when you call response render or just render, it would use bare UI instead of Blade or React, Svelte, whatever. So yeah, that's a little compromise. Yeah. Um, Laravel, honestly, I mean, I've always said this, but then Laravel just seems so huge, and then there's just a whole lot of stuff I don't even get. It's extremely huge. I don't know. Maybe I just have um, yeah. Maybe I just can't stand to look at a lot of things at the same time. I think Laravel knew. So I was trying out Laravel 12, and it was just a whole lot. So what starter kit to be like, please? Let me just go with none so we get like the very basic Laravel setup. And even this is a whole lot because comparing it to the Leaf setup, which did take some time because of NPM, but this takes like twice as long, even with a very basic Laravel application. And then on top of that, the number of files you get and the number of things you have to learn just don't make sense to me. Um, yeah, like Laravel itself is really good, but then that whole monolith batteries included kind of thing, um, definitely no, because that'll take forever. Okay. What did I create? The CD, I think that's around 12, and then open this up in VS Code. Yeah, and this is just everything. And this doesn't include anything at all. This is just a basic Laravel application. And it's just a whole lot to look at the same time. You have all of these files, which are like your setup files, and then you have test, storage, routes, um, resources, which have your views, public, which you probably wouldn't use anyway. But then here you have database, factories, migration, seeders, which Leaf 4 ran away from. But then you have the config, which is all like this. So this is what I was trying to avoid with the Leaf MVC 4 configuration, because this is just a whole lot. And then people always open up files. So I mean, if a file exists, there's a huge chance that someone would probably pop it open to play with it. So that's just extra things for people to deal with. Bootstrap for like your cache application providers, which still piss me off. And then you have your actual application, HTTP controllers, models. This is a whole lot. It's just a whole lot. And that's why I ran away from Laravel. Oh, that's one of the reasons I ran away from Laravel. Second reason is their automation is just so crazy. It's extremely crazy. In a sense, you can type one command that does like 15 different things, and you don't even know what it did or where it came from, stuff like that. Like, it just takes automation to a whole different level, which for some people is good, but then for me, it's kind of crazy because I can't track what's going on. Sometimes, I mean, other times it's like really cool. I think those are like my two major problems with Laravel. Performance, I haven't really built an application that needs like every single fine grain of performance. So I wouldn't um talk about Laravel's performance as a reason for not using it. But then um just the sheer size of it, how it's bloated and all of those stuff. Definitely not a direction I want to go with Leaf. Um yep. So that's pretty much it. Uh I think for a base set of features. So the whole idea with Leaf MVC 4 and Leaf 4, as I mentioned last week, is just to give you everything you need to be able to build an application really, really fast. And for a base set of features, I think um, what Leaf MVC 4 comes with should pretty much be able to build everything. Um, yeah, I mean that's arguable, but then um, yeah, you could pretty much build anything you want with with Leaf MVC 4. And then there are a few more features on the way. The main reason I didn't add any new crazy feature besides schema files, as I said, I don't want to maintain anything new right now. It's just a whole lot of work popping in new things to maintain, especially since Leaf already has about 70 different repos. Yeah, definitely some of them are like documentation repos and all of that stuff. But then we still have 70 different repos and a whole lot of modules. I think we have about 40 different installable modules. So yeah, that's actually a lot to maintain. And then I'm currently making sure everything works perfectly with Leaf 4, with Leaf MVC 4, which I've also gone through a lot of change. Um, one big thing was like rewriting the config layer. The view layer has also completely changed. So I basically have to make sure everything works perfectly and also works with the new automation. So opening something new, something extremely new to maintain just is not a good idea right now. So yeah, that's how come Leaf MVC 4 doesn't come with anything crazy new. Yeah, 74 repos. Wow. Yeah, but some of them have been archived, like Leaf API, which was archived because it was just a clone of Leaf MVC and it didn't make sense to maintain both of them. Um, yeah, but then there's a whole lot of nice, fancy things that I'm kind of working on. Yeah. So yeah, something like fetch, um, which is like a Node.js inspired way to just work with APIs. So you could just fetch like this instead of using everything Guzzle gives you. So I think that's like the common trend in Leaf. Everything in Leaf is just about making things simpler for you. And with Leaf MVC 4 and with Leaf 4, things actually work together instead of being different modules. So instead of having like Leaf DB, having Eloquent, you just have one single database layer and everything just works together. So you can build extremely fast. With zero config, that's pretty much the biggest thing for me. You don't have to configure anything at all. And if you do need to configure something, you can always just hop into your environment variable, um, which also makes it easier to control because you could have different configurations for your local development, your production environment, and all of that stuff. Um, yeah, so that's basically it. That's all of Leaf. That's what I'm doing with Leaf MVC 4. Um, yeah, I just hope it makes it easier for you guys to build and ship faster. Yeah. So as I said, the stable release hopefully should be in 2 weeks. So please, please, please do build with it. Um, it's quite stable already, as I mentioned. I'm already building with it. I have friends building with it, and everything we found wrong so far has been fixed and is in this version. Everything we wanted to do and was like, would be nice if Leaf had this. It's now in Leaf. And the really cool thing is, for most of those, you don't have to set them up. You don't have to actually do anything. I think that's probably the biggest change with Leaf MVP. Like you don't really have to do anything. You probably just leave install and everything works. Um, yeah. So just test it out and leave your feedback. On Discord, I created a Leaf 4 channel. Oh, that's a new documentation pain point. Okay. That isn't documented. How to change passwords. Tests don't cover every method. Yeah, actually, that's kind of true. That's actually true because um, I think I just wrote a documentation for alchemy. I didn't write a documentation for actually writing your test. Um, the reason I did that was alchemy is supposed to allow you set up different test engines. So you could bring your own test engine, and then that would also mean you'd have to reference the documentation of whatever test engine you are using. So that was kind of the reasoning there. Right now, it only supports test, but then it's supposed to work with test PHP units, and then you're supposed to also be able to set up stuff like Rector, PHP, and all of that directly from Alchemy. So basically, Alchemy is kind of like a middleman. It just gives you really cool functions, a really simple setup like this. So you don't have to write like a PHP units.xml file because XML is just plain nasty to me. Yeah, but then both test and PHP units require that. So this was a way to kind of get away from that. And then you can also set up linting and all of that. Yeah. But then I never really covered the documentation of actually using them because yeah, it was sort of like a bring your own library kind of thing. So you would reference the pest documentation, and then over here for code styling, you reference PHP Victor documentation. Maybe I could have done a better job of explaining that. Yeah, but then that's perfectly valid. That's extremely valid. How to change passwords? I think I kind of covered that. I think I did. Authentication should be somewhere like authentication. And then user, I think updating password reset. Yeah, I kind of covered that. Maybe you missed out on that part of the documentation. Yeah. Let's see. Test covering all classes methods like an API reference. It's just been laziness. The only thing stopping me from doing that has been laziness. Um, now everything is a bit of a short story, which doesn't cover all that's available. Yeah. So that's true. That's actually true. That's actually true. So I will reference that. Yeah, I'll do a better job on that, especially on the testing part, because it looks like I actually made zero mention of anything. So if people don't know what pest is, they would have no idea what this is talking about. So that actually makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Um, I don't know if there's any other thing. If there's any other thing you guys have, just drop in the comments and I will take a look at it. Um, Yeah. Okay. Right. So I think before this, I was going to say, if you have anything with the beta, just drop it in here on Discord. You can find the link right here. Just click on this button, and it will take you to the Discord channel. So, just hop over into Leaf 4 beta. Actually, you could just open an issue. That's also fine. Just open an issue. But then don't forget to specify you're using Leaf beta Leaf 4 or Leaf MVC 4 beta. Because version 3 is still the major version at the moment. But yeah, honestly, version 4 is perfectly fine to use. I don't think I'm ever building with version 3 again. Because in my opinion, version 4 is way more stable and a lot nicer to use than version 3. So, if your application is not a too serious application, I do recommend starting with version 4 beta because the API wouldn't change that much from the actual release. There'll be no breaking changes at this point. I think we've already broken everything that needs to be broken, so there'll be no breaking changes from version 4 beta to version 4. So you could honestly build with it. But then to be on the safer side, just do that if it's kind of like a hobby project or um not too big of a project. Yeah. So yeah, everything you need is over here, beta.leafphp.dev. Um and then that's pretty much it. As I mentioned, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter stuff so you can always get important updates. Yeah. So yeah, yes, Terry, thank thanks a lot. Uh Yeah, I'm also excited for version 4, honestly. As I say, I'm not building with 3 anymore. But then there are bugs I need to fix on 3, which is also pretty annoying. But yeah, pretty much all of the bugs I found in 3 have been fixed on 4. So I need to push out a version 3.11 or 3.12 that would fix all of that. And then also make migration from 3 to 4 easier. So I think that's pretty much the last thing I need to work on for version 3, and then that would be all of it. So yeah, just try it out and give me your feedback, if any. Um, yeah, and I hope it's fun to use. I personally am having a lot of fun using version 4. Um, yeah, so yeah, that's it, guys. That's pretty much it. Um, yeah, it doesn't look like there's any other thing to talk about. No more questions here that I haven't said. I think I have gone through all of the channels. Yeah, I think I've gone through everything here. So, um, yeah, so I can end this here if there's nothing more to talk about, and I will catch you guys during the week. Actually, I don't think there's anything interesting happening during the week. Um, yeah, if Leaf 4 continues to look good, we might actually push up the schedule for the official launch, like the stable release, because it's actually looking really good. Um, yeah, and then Leaf 0 is another annoying one because I need to build for React Vue and Svelte. Yeah, but that'll be okay. That'll actually be okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Nothing new. So I'll end it here. I'll catch you guys next week for our 20th hangout, I think. Yeah, this hangout 19. Yeah, so next week will be our 20th hangout. Pretty cool. Um, actually, I have no idea what we'll be doing next week. So if you have any suggestions, drop them on Discord. And yeah, okay. So I'll catch you guys. Take care. Have an amazing weekend. It's 10 p.m. here. I need to get ready for bed. Bye.